Well, there's a different attitude towards same-sex minors and adults that is with some people in the gay community. In fact, there was a law that they were trying to pass in California where they were saying that the age of consent being 18 was in somehow or another anti-LGBTQ. Because some young men sought mentors in older gay men, some young men who are gay.
I mean, that sounds like
was his Klein, is that what his name? There's a politician in California that was very controversial because he was promoting this.
Very controversial because he's promoting pedophilia.
And
that's going to be controversial.
Well, I think his idea was like 16 and 17-year-old boys, and that should be okay, which is, it gets very sketchy.
That sounds also. Let's wind it back. Here's something that we could do, right? Here's something we could start a campaign for. Those laws about, the age of consent in the UK is 16.
Yeah.
But those laws should be for 17 and 18-year-old boys.
Yes.
They shouldn't apply to us.
Right. It shouldn't apply to a 55-year-old man.
So Romeo and Juliet law, I think they have it in New York. They have it in certain states where you go, yeah, that's the age of consent is 16 for her. And that guy who's 17 and it's her boyfriend and they've come up at school together. Yeah. That makes sense. And then at 18, maybe... Okay, go and do whatever you're going to do.
I remember
that would
when
make
I
a lot
was
more sense to me.
18 years old, when I turned 18, my girlfriend was a year younger than me, and she was 17, and I was terrified that I was going to go to jail because I was a legal adult and she was still a child.
Right.
Even though we started dating when I was 16, or I was 17 and she was 16, and then when I turned 18, I was like, oh my God. Like, could I get in jail for this? I remember thinking that. Like, is this illegal? Like, because it kind of technically is. I think if you're dating a girl like that. I mean, this is 1985. So Gavin Newsom signed a law that could give judges a say on whether to list someone as a sex offender for having oral or anal sex with a minor. The bill would expand discretion currently granted judges in statutory rape charges as promoted by bringing fairness under the law to LGBTQ defendants. The current law, in place for decades, permits judges to decide whether a man should be placed on California's sex offender registry if he had voluntary intercourse with someone from 14 to 17 years old and was no more than 10 years older than the person.
Right. I don't want to come to your show and be all controversial, but I think broadly speaking, don't be a pedophile.
Right. I think that's a good thing to say. But that discretion, it says, only applied to a man who had vaginal intercourse. The new law permits judges to use the same discretion when the case involves voluntary oral or anal sex. The measure won't apply when a minor is under 14, when the gap is larger than 10 years, or when either party says the sex wasn't consensual. The law does not change the age of consent in California, which is 18. Adults caught having sex with minors will still face statutory rape charges. Yeah, Scott Wiener, that's the guy. San Francisco Democrat. So
great
this guy...
Great name for a guy.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how those Wiener guys keep getting in trouble? Anthony Weiner, Scott Wiener.
Yeah. Nominative determinism. It's a thing, right?
It's like the simulation theory. It's like the universe is playing little jokes on you. It's like...
Yeah.
But this guy, like, there's photos of this guy at gay pride parades, like wearing a dog collar, like, he's.
I mean, I got zero problem with that. I got a problem with him saying.
Let's just quote on it. I think the article continued. I didn't realize.
The law ends discrimination by treating LGBTQ young people the exact same way that straight young people have been treated since 1944, Wiener said in a statement, adding, today California took yet another step towards equitable society. So what that seems to me is like there was a law already in place giving judges discretion, but it was only for vaginal sex, and he thought that it should apply to oral and anal sex.
Yeah. It
seems like the law is the issue, right? Because 10 years older, like if someone's 26, another person's 16, like, or 15 and 25, like, that's crazy. I mean, there's a reason why it's 18. Like 18 is like reasonable.
Yeah, and I think you have to give people agency at some point. Yeah, at some point you have to give people agency and go, look, you're allowed to make your own decisions now. Do as you please.
Yes. I mean, you are certainly a young person at 18, but if you're a young man at 18 and you decide to have sex with a man who's 30 years old, like that's completely reasonable.
I think it's also, try telling an 18-year-old they're not full grown. I mean, it's a weird thing. I wonder in the future, because the mind, your brain isn't fully developed. I think it's 25.
Well, 25 is the age your frontal cortex is fully formed, I believe, as a male.
Do you think?
I think for females like mentally mature earlier than men too.
I wonder what age it is. But
they're
that
generally
like,
smarter than men. When
I wonder
more
in a generation's time, will everyone go, sorry, you were fucking a 21-year-old? I wonder will it ever go the other way?
That seems silly. That seems, especially men and women. I mean, if it's a 21-year-old man, a 30-year-old woman has sex with you, she's going to be brought up on charges. That's insane.
Yeah. You had that great bit about that.
Yeah. I
That's
said
a
there's
great
no
bit of yours.
sexual equality when it comes to child molesting.
Yeah.
I said
That's
because
very
a
funny.
grown man can molest a 16-year-old girl, but a grown woman can't really molest a 16-year-old boy. She can only let him fuck her. Like, what's the worst thing that happened? You found out about something awesome early? Like, poor Billy got his dick sucked by the hot teacher.
Yeah,
he's never going to recover.
It's a very good.
Thank you.
And we're not denigrating the suffering of men that have been molested.
No. But it's always
Dimitri Martin had a great line on that as well. He said something about some guy that fucked his teacher, and Dimitri said, "Yeah, he died. He got high-fived to death."
I think that was Zach Galifianakis.
Was that Zach?
I think so.
I think it's Dimitri.
You might be right.
I'll double down. I mean, those guys are both phenomenal
both brilliant
writers.
I think it might have been Galifianakis, but either way. Great joke, but it's high five to death. But it's it's a difference. There's a difference, and it's also the difference in how we. It's unfortunate, but there's a prejudice about women having sex versus men having sex. That with a woman is being taken advantage of by the man, like that they don't have agency, whereas the man is the pursuer and the predator. And so there's an aspect of that goes along with it, that a male, like we don't think of a 16-year-old boy having sex with a hot 30-year-old woman as like that boy being molested. We just don't.
Yeah, well, I suppose, increasingly, we will. I haven't given it a lot of thought, but it does strike me that thing of like agency and being 18 and being a grown-up in society.
Yeah.
I suppose the problem is that thing, what's that book, is it Jonathan Haidt? The coddling of the American mind. That idea of going, if there's no freedom for kids anymore, like you're not allowed to go and play on your own. You're not allowed to leave the house and mess around. And, the only freedom you have now as a kid is online. So you're not allowed to go and experience that thing of being out in the world.
In danger. Yeah.
Danger.
And knowing what's safe and what's not safe and having experiences with people that are sketchy.
So then if you don't get any of that, until you're 18, and then suddenly you get all of that, but you've not been drip fed it.